Hello and welcome back to yet another Bandicoot 4. It's about time. I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
I'm your host, Dalton Lee. You prepared me for that, and I
forgot.
I still wasn't ready. I don't know if I'm proud of these dumb opening joke lines we insist on doing, or like embarrassed. It can go either way from day to day. We'll see. We'll see when I'm editing. If it made it in, well, I guess I still might have been ashamed of it because I didn't record another opening to keep in there.
Yeah, we kind of just wing it.
Anyway, there is yet another Crash Bandicoot 4 coming, but we're not here to talk about that.
And
I mean, we could, but we don't.
I don't want to watch.
We don't really talk about game announcements.
I don't think I want to watch a Naughty Dog trailer for a while. We'll get into that at the end of this episode because it will be spoilers.
Wait, are you aware that Bandicoot is not Naughty Dog
anymore?
It hasn't been in a long time.
No.
I don't think since the original trilogy.
Oh, no.
Anyway, we'll get to The Last of Us 2, which is why anybody clicked on this. I would say there are people that clicked on this because they listen to our show and they like it and they always listen to our episodes, but those people don't actually exist and we keep doing this anyway.
Right.
So the 4 people hearing this probably clicked for The Last of Us 2, and we're going to save that for last because we are very mean people. And instead, I'm going to start with a game from 12 years ago that you all definitely already have your own opinions on anyway.
Okay.
Which would be Assassin's Creed.
Oh, okay.
Which Alex is probably thinking to himself right now, we said we were going to spotlight these together. Why are you talking about it now? And I'm talking about it now because I finished it a month ago. And if you haven't started playing it while you're banned from your Switch, you probably weren't going to do it. So now I'm talking about Assassin's Creed.
For it.
So I
can still talk to you about it. I know enough. You got to be like Salahadin and remember.
Yeah. Well, so you did play it, but that was probably 12 years ago.
Geez.
Is it 12? 2008?
I played it in 2009. I got my Xbox 360 Elite, mind you, like a year after it came out, something like that.
I hope they bring back the word Elite for the Xbox naming schemes. I hope we get like a Xbox Elite Series XS. Scorpio.
I mean, I love all the memes about the new consoles where it's like, do you want the modem or the router? Because both of them.
Oh, okay.
Still getting a PS5 though.
So Assassin's Creed has been a part of both of our lives for quite a long time.
I believe it was I introduced you to them because I wanted you to play them for years. Yeah,
well, wanted me to play it for years isn't really the right way to put it because I played it very shortly after that period of my life where I didn't really play games for several years. So I think I played them within a year of getting back into gaming. But like, yeah, it was at your suggestion. And this is now my third time playing through the original game. Now, the first time playing through it, to be honest, if I hadn't already bought... Oh, it must have been several years, because I bought the Ezio trilogy at the same time, so there were at least 4 games out.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It was quite a few years later. Anyway, if I hadn't already bought the Ezio trilogy before I started playing the first one, to be honest, I don't know if I would have finished it and continued.
I guess that would be fair, because the first game is kind of hard to get through.
The first one is not a thrilling start. Just in terms of it introduces some great ideas, but just doesn't really have the polish to nail it. And Altair is just not the lead man that Ezio is.
There's no character to Altair.
Yeah, it's just a decently repetitive game where like the whole the kingdom, they call it, the kingdom is kind of this area that you go through it to get from each city to another once, and then you start skipping over it with a fast travel because it's just this big empty barren thing. And like, okay, there are collectible flags and there are Templars to kill, and so you do find those out in the kingdom, but like
hold on,
finding these,
I completely forgot about that
Sorry?
open world until you just mentioned it. That should say something.
Yeah. Yeah. So like these collectibles aren't a good enough reason
Exactly.
to keep exploring this huge barren dirt road on a horse. It's but again, like I'm downing it here, but I did say that I've played through it a third time now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't totally hate it. Now, part of it is if I'm going to start playing the series over again, of course I'm going to start from the first one. But I also don't really hate it because at the same time, like, I'm capable of putting myself in the headspace where, you know, I can think as if, like, what if this is the only Assassin's Creed game so far? Like, can I ignore the influence and the improvements of the later ones? And I'm capable of doing that and forgetting about how much better it can get in other games, and just appreciating the innovation it's bringing at the time. Which, at the time, I suppose the innovation would have been just how big and lively the world feels. Just the detail put into the architecture and how many NPCs are roaming around the cities. The stealth mechanics can be relatively immersive at times.
Yeah, I did enjoy a lot of like
a lot more polished.
The eavesdropping segments; those were cool, and I don't think they were ever brought back.
Yeah, well, and so I've seen, and I tried this for a little while, I've seen people online suggest that the first Assassin's Creed, is a much better game if you turn off the HUD. And I'm not somebody that ever does that, but I gave it a shot because the gist of it was, if you shut off the HUD, you know, mostly the mini-map telling you where to go, the idea is you're actually going to listen to what those eavesdropping sections are telling you.
Okay.
Or when you pickpocket somebody, you're more inclined to pay attention to why you're doing it. You also would interrogate people, which basically meant following them into an alley and then whooping their ass. And then getting them to tell you some shit, and then you kill them anyway, even though they gave you what you wanted, because Altair's an asshole. That actually really bothered me this time through. I never paid close enough attention the last few times I played to, like, what was being said back and forth. And, like, Altair would basically, you know, that's the idea of an interrogation. Like, the whole idea is tell me this so I don't kill you. And then, like, they would give you this information. They would explain, like, why they know it, why they're involved with the goings on, what their motivations are for participating. And, like, you know, maybe they're doing this or that to help their family or whatever. And to Altair, it's, like, not good enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
I don't really feel like it's consistent with Assassin ideology, but I also don't feel like I ever properly wrapped my head around what Assassin ideology is, as well as I would have liked to have figured out by now. Maybe this time through the games, I'll think about it a little harder and it'll become clear to me. Or maybe it was never thought out and coherent to begin with. And I'll just solidify that in my mind.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's so tough because, like, I can do the same thing where I can kind of, like, place myself in that time frame again. You and I have actually talked about it before, but, like, I have some sort of like synesthesia where it's auditory. And like every time I play that game, for some reason, I am reminded by one of In Flames' albums, which the album is escaping me. Oh goodness, what is it? It has Alias on it, whichever album that is. But like that, and do you ever? Because I don't know. There's a lot of strong tie to that game for me for some reason. Have you ever gotten a game that you were so enthralled in and engaged in like a certain season of the year, and you can swear you're feeling yourself like getting overheated or cool or too cold because you're going back to that time frame?
No, I don't think I can relate to that.
Oh, really? Okay, because a lot of the time, like I could be playing that game in the middle of summer, no AC, and I'll feel myself getting cold because I got that game in the winter. It was one of the first games I bought for the Xbox 360.
Wow.
I don't know. It's weird. If anybody else has that, let me know, because it's a weird experience. Same thing with like Jack 2, like the sequel to Jack and Daxter, the precursor Legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why, but like depending on how much I put myself back into that mental state of that time, I can do that, and it's weird, man.
Yeah, interesting. So I originally played it on the PS3.
Oh, okay.
I've played it on PC since, and so with the benefit of modern support for high resolutions and high frame rates, the game still holds up visually.
Yeah, it's a really good looking game.
I mean, for 12 years ago, I mean, again, there's a really big step up to Assassin's Creed 2. But if I had to guess how old this was, I guess I still would have guessed it was that generation. It doesn't look incredible by any means, but there's just enough interesting effort put into the art design that I'm not super prone to noticing and getting distracted by like repeating NPCs and all these buildings using the same textures and whatever weaknesses come with that era. I was able to immerse myself perfectly fine. Each of the cities have a really distinct vibe to themselves. Although some amount of that vibe seems to be just like slapping a color filter over the whole screen.
That's
this
too
city's
true.
Vibe is gray.
That's too true.
This city's vibe is blue. I did appreciate that the story is laid out in a way that, like, each of the, I want to say there's 3 cities, not including oh crap, what is it called? Masayef? Am I saying that right?
Oh,
Masayef.
Yeah, the assassins town.
Yeah, so not including where they're headquartered, there's 3 other cities, and it's formatted in a way where like each chapter or half a chapter of the game is about you hunting down the next target that has some significance why you're being instructed to go after that person by your leader, and they all tie into the greater story and conspiracy going on, but they're laid out so that you don't spend each chapter in the same city. Like you go back and revisit them. So maybe you hang out in the poor area of this city now, you go do some other chapters, and then you return and go to the wealthier part of this city that you were already in. And just like breaking it up like that helped get through a bit of monotony you would have had from just things starting to feel samey.
Yeah.
If there's one big thing for me to give to this game compared to the other ones that I wish would kind of come back and we'd see more of, is that this one, while the gameplay is less interesting just from having less mechanics involved, this one makes you feel more like an assassin. I mean, I know that's a meme at this point. Spider-Man really makes you feel like Spider-Man. But this game does make you feel more like an assassin than the other ones.
It doesn't
we'll see
feel
if I change my mind
fancy.
having
It feels
revisited
dirty.
them.
Like it's not.
Maybe that
There's nothing clever about things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas like the other games, like the hook blade, this is the hook and this is the blade. Things like that.
Maybe that's it. Up until like, you know, when you're in the past segments, you know, when you're not dealing with Animus stuff specifically, I guess that's it. It does feel particularly well grounded. There's just less stretching your imagination.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going on missions where if Altair were a real person, he could have gathered this information in this way, and it would have led him to take out this target in this manner. I shouldn't even say in this manner, because like you get options. You get to think about how you want to use the advice that's given to you. Like, you don't have options in terms of like the set of tools available to you is limited, but you can still decide like which way am I going to escape?
Right. Am I going to go in head first, or am I going to sneak my way around?
Yeah.
If you're given that option.
I had a kill. Yeah, like I had a kill where the target was going to be in a building. I'm trying to figure out the best way into the building, and I saw a window that I realized, oh, I can't get into that, but I can definitely get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in, snuck inside for the kill, but before I did it, I looked up, oh, where is that window? And yeah, that window, like, you totally have a path to get out there and escape that way. Or you can fight your way back out the front entrance. But you get options in that sense. So I don't know. The Assassin's Creed games, people know that they're barely about assassins anymore.
Yeah, really.
It's become a wildly different animal. But there are elements here that I'd like to see us focus a little more on. Try another more grounded story. More grounded up until the Apple of Eden stuff shows up.
Well, of course, yeah.
But as for starting my interest in the series, I guess this is a commentary on the whole series here, not this game in particular. But the Animus sci-fi stuff is so cool to me, and like during the whole game, that this is a sci-fi story. You're introduced to the Animus very early and the modern day characters, but like you get some really big grand reveals at the end. And maybe I'm contradicting myself here, because on one hand I just said I'd like something a little more grounded here, but I'm also saying, oh, these early games though, they always had a really big reveal at the end. In terms of things you're learning about the world or where the story might be going. And so while I did get bored at several points during my first playthrough of this game, like I ended it going, oh man, this world is still really cool. I can't wait to get to the next one.
Yeah.
Because I already had it. If I didn't already have it, I would have said, man, if the next one is as boring throughout as this one, maybe I'm gonna YouTube the important bits.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like they have to get bigger and better, but like after the third one, it felt a little too ambiguous, and there's like a million things going on after the third one.
Yeah.
Or it's either it feels way too like it's trying to fill big shoes for no reason, or it feels so samey it hurts.
Yeah.
And there's not enough to break up the monotony after the third game.
Yeah, so that said, I still like the game. I'm still happy I played through it again. If you're not already familiar with the franchise, know that this isn't going to impress you, especially given that like you're not going to appreciate some of its innovations in the way that you would have at the time.
Yeah.
It's going to feel dated to you. You might not understand why it was a big deal. And it's just not nearly as good as some of its successors.
Power through the first one to get to the second one, because that's where it's at.
Or just start with the second one. I hesitate because they end up tying together eventually.
Through Revelations, they do, yeah. So I would honestly just power through as much of it as you can before you get tired of it.
Mm-hmm. Buy it on a sale for $5. If you can't handle playing it because it's not that great, just YouTube the rest of the story. Start again with 2.
Yeah.
2 can still very well blow you away if this one doesn't.
Yeah.
Boy, that segment went on a lot longer than I anticipated, but I'm going to spend like 2 minutes on something related that I had never touched before.
Okay.
Which is Assassin's Creed Altair's Chronicles.
Oh, I don't know this one.
This game was on the DS and some phones, but this is like smartphones were brand new. So like it had Android and iOS versions, I think, but it also had like a Java version for dumb phones. Anyway, I emulated the DS version.
Not the Java version?
Not the Java version.
Aww.
Are you aware that all of the Assassin's Creed games have Java dumb phone mobile ports all the way up to like Unity?
No.
Maybe Syndicate?
Are you serious?
Yeah, you can find them on YouTube. It's
my
insane.
God. I remember, not to throw you off the rails, but speaking of old mobile games, I remember there was a Star Wars Episode 3 game that came out for my dad's old flip phone, and I begged him to buy it. And you could beat that game by straight up just jumping through the whole game until you got to the end and fought the boss. Oh, God. Gaming on phones like that was awful.
Yeah, anyway, this game wasn't much better on the DS. So, I've never owned a DS, and I don't think I've ever emulated a DS game either.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of exposure to your 3DS, I think, but
probably, which I still can't use.
I have no nostalgia for that part of Nintendo's history. So, first time trying to emulate a DS game. I did try to find it for my phone first, by the way. I didn't resort immediately to stealing it. I checked the Google Play Store and it is not there anymore. So that said, the DS has far too low of a resolution screen to be trying to do a game like this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the DS just has like the worst gigantic pile of crap games that tried to be like proper 3D games running on that thing. That just didn't work in terms of being able to see what's going on, in terms of it keeping up a stable frame rate.
Right.
I think I was able to double the resolution while emulating it, and it was still unbearable to look at. This game basically tried to retell like a shortened version of the original game. Like it's still the story of like Altair is a great assassin, but he's demoted now and he has to go after these targets to get promoted again. And you go after like the same targets, and it's kind of 2.5D. Like it goes side to side like the later Assassin's Creed Chronicles games.
Okay.
But like but those are like stealth games.
Yeah.
Like purely
right.
Like straightforward, like you're not going to fight your way through most of these scenarios. This one is more like the mainline Assassin's Creed games in that like stealth mechanics are in there, but you're really supposed to get good at the combat too.
Right. Okay.
But the combat feels awful. Everything about it feels awful. I don't have a lot to say about it because I couldn't play it for more than 30 minutes without going mad. It had like platforming bits where like between barely being able to see and the frame rate being bad and the controls being bad.
Right.
Like I'd keep failing at the same, what should have been an easy platforming bit over and over again. This is just a really messy stupid attempt at like I think it's that thing where they're like trying to confuse grandmothers into buying the wrong game. Right? There were definitely kids at this time that said, I want Assassin's Creed for Christmas. And then their grandparents bought them this thing.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Or it's that thing where like when smartphones were pretty new and people were still kind of figuring out what a phone was actually like capable of.
Right.
People would go into the Play Store and they would Google these at the time modern full-fledged AAA console games, and they'd see that like, oh, the result came up in the Play Store or the App Store, but it was always these dumb, terrible ports. Not even ports, the wrong word. They're new games that are just bad, that they hoped you would click on because it said Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto on it, or whatever franchises have done this. I don't know.
Or even before, like, they got their, like, copywriting stuff a lot better, and it was just some dude making a fake Assassin's Creed game, and it wasn't even Assassin's Creed at all. I think that happened to, like, Five Nights at Freddy's or something, where some dude just stole assets from the game and just created, like, a Freddy Fazbear that jumped over pumpkins. And, like, that's all the game was.
Yeah. Anyway, so Assassin's Creed Altair's Chronicles is unplayable. Strong, do not recommend. And moving on, what do you got?
So, in the same vein of a game that you maybe only played for 30 minutes, I played this game for maybe about 30 minutes too. And I hope that I'm not getting a lot of shit for this. But I tried playing The Evil Within. And I got 30.
I've started it.
I got 30 minutes into it, and I'm not a fan of it. I'm not.
Okay. I'm laughing because
Did you do the same thing?
That there are friends of mine who you've met, who have been really insistent on me playing this game. And I put it off forever, not because I wasn't interested, not because I don't take their suggestions seriously, but because I don't really play horror games. Because, well, they do their job. They stress me out, and I just don't have a great time. I finished Alien Isolation last year, and thinking back, it might be the only time I've ever finished a proper horror game.
Oh, wow.
That said, I did start The Evil Within a little while later, and I didn't quit it per se. I still intend to play it, but I did forget that I was playing it after one session and not go back to it, which does say that like it didn't manage to get my attention.
That's the thing. Like, I've had friends whom you have met too, where they're like, this game is really good, the story's fantastic, and I started playing it and it felt like it was trying to scare me and couldn't. Like, I got until, like, seriously, like, I spent most of my time just sitting there and waiting, because I was like talking to my wife. I'm like, this game, like, I see what it's trying to go for, but I don't get it, you know. And I'm pointing little things out to her. I only got out of the spot where the dude chases you with the chainsaw in the very beginning, and that took me about 30 minutes to get out of that, only because you have to wait a lot for him. And then, like, I got through all the cutscenes, and like the tutorial was great. Like, it makes you have to learn things very fast, but there is no tension. There's just none. Like, oh, this dude cuts somebody in half while you're hanging upside down. Oh, that's terrifying. I've seen it. You know what I mean?
So it wasn't really scaring me either, which is normally relatively easy to do. All of the like tension and anxiety I was feeling wasn't fear. It was, I have to move so slowly and be so stealthy and like wait so often for someone to position themselves in the right place that I'm like, Man, if I guess how I'm supposed to approach this wrong and somebody eyeballs me, I'm going to be set back 15 minutes.
Right. That was the only thing. Like, that was the only thing that was annoying me too. Is just like, oh no, like I really don't want to have to go back all that 5 minutes and wait another 10.
Yeah, and it's not like it's hard, and it's not like I have a problem with games being hard. It's just that when I am dying here and I'm losing that 5-10 minutes depending on where I died, I just it made me mad because going through that 5 to 10 minutes again was just carefully waiting again.
Yeah.
I got so impatient of sitting there waiting for the right moment, failing a few minutes later, getting set back to point A, waiting for the right moment again. And I don't know, I'm sure there's videos out there of people managing to play through it without ever waiting at
Right.
all that are better at stealth games and just better at awareness of what the other of what the NPCs can perceive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's other people that manage to run right through it, but like, I don't love horror games. I don't love stealth games.
Right.
And I wasn't enjoying patiently waiting through the same area over and over again until I finally lucked out.
Yeah. Like, here's the thing. The atmosphere for me even wasn't all that there. Like, it just felt like it was trying to be one of our local haunted houses.
It's really cheesy.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's part of it.
I assume they're going for that, right? Like,
yeah.
They can't possibly be going for like the genuine horror of like Alien Isolation.
Right.
They had to have known that this was like a controllable B movie, I would think.
Yeah, and you know, maybe that's part of it, and maybe I'll have to go back in kind of thinking that way. I might actually just watch a review and see if I can find one without any spoilers in it. Just so that way maybe I can get another context from what I was expecting versus what they were trying to give me.
So you can understand what other people are appreciating.
Oh, that's a foreshadowing.
Go any further.
Anyways. Yeah, so I mean that's the big thing. Like maybe I was just going into it expecting something else. And that might have ruined my expectations at first, but maybe if I can kind of understand what it's doing outside of just, hey, hide. Oh, you're scared, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, got you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. And I think I'll go back to it too, give it another shot eventually, but I think I just wasn't in the right mood at the time.
That's also probably what happened to me too.
Because I had just finished Alien Isolation, and I don't play those games, and it was a little silly for me to jump right into another one.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. From what I could tell, it seems like a good game, but it feels very typical.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll.
That's the vibe I'm getting. There was nothing particularly bad to it. There was just nothing drawing me in either, and maybe eventually the story becomes genuinely interesting and not pure just shock value at individual moments.
Right.
I haven't seen any evidence that it's going there, but like with the friends that recommended it to me being as passionate about it as they are, I would like to hope and assume that it becomes more interesting after the point I've gotten to.
I mean, like, I've heard great things about The Evil Within 2, but I don't want to go into that one immediately without knowing what happens in the first game. So, I'll figure it out. Moving on.
So that's not necessarily a do not recommend. That's more of a it wasn't for us, at least not at the moment.
I'll go into it probably with some newly recharged batteries, because I had just started playing it coming out of The Last of Us Part 2. And kind of similar gameplay.
So speaking of, I want to cover one more game I played before you jump into The Last of Us 2.
Oh, I've got something else that I think you would love. That's a show that I've been watching.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Dalton, I want to take you back in time for a minute. Second grade. Picture second grade right now.
Okay.
Remember when we had to go into the double filed lines, boys and girls lined up to go use the bathroom for bathroom breaks and all that fun stuff?
Yes.
That didn't feel very convincing.
I'm sorry. What was happening mentally there was that I was reflecting on how like
old you are.
I was reflecting on gender issues.
Oh,
you pointed out the two lines, and for a moment I went like, "Oh, why do we do that? That's so weird."
It is weird.
And then I remembered. Oh, well, you're on the way to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So like, you're in separate lines because you're going to different bathrooms.
Yeah. So,
and maybe it is silly culturally that we still actually like separate bathrooms like that instead of just having stalls that properly close all the way and calling it a day.
right.
But that's a whole nother cultural discussion.
Yeah, let's not dive into that.
Anyway, second grade.
Okay, so you remember those? You'd wait in line to use the bathroom, and then you would come out, wait for the rest of the class. And that was like the best time of the day because you and your buddies would just do stupid shit waiting for the rest of the class to finish up using the bathroom. Do you remember the game, Hey, the Floor is Lava?
Okay, I watched this too.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So The Floor is Lava on Netflix. Yeah, I watched a few episodes.
My wife and I, we were just because like I had been mostly playing games while she's been working from home, and I was like, I'm tired of playing games for a minute. I kind of want to watch something. So we popped on Netflix, and that was the first thing that popped up, and I'm like, oh, okay, I have to. This show is kind of in the light of like Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Wipeout, like
Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, exactly. And basically the floor is lava, and they emulate that with some weird sticky ass water that's dyed orange and have a bunch of lights to like simulate different like heats and intensities. And they're given a few different pathways, these teams of 3.
There's what's supposed to be magma floating throughout this lava.
Yeah. And it's just foam.
And it just looks it looks so much like shit.
I know.
There's just shit floating through all this water. I can't stop looking at it.
It's Earth Dookie. But yeah, so these teams of 3 have to navigate through these obstacles to get to the end. And each episode is one particular room and 3 teams of 3. The goal is to get as many teammates as you can across the lava without them falling in. And if, say, you know, this first team gets 2 in, the second team is eliminated, and the third team gets 2 in as well, it comes down to the time. So, like, let's say the first team took 5 minutes to get in there, but the other team took 4.5. Well, the team that had 4.5 minutes with the same points wins, because that's just what's denominating the tiebreaker. This feels like an early game show from like Nickelodeon or like Wipeout, like we were talking, but it's for some reason not as cringy. Like, my favorite thing is that there was one episode where it was a set of twins and a mom, and I think this was the first episode, and the lady jumps from one thing to another, and it hits her face off this object so hard, and they replayed it like 6 times, and I couldn't handle it, dude. They're like, oh, look at that. Just the head bouncing, and just see her chin hit the thing, and then her head just flings straight up. Yeah. So like it's got like some factoring of like ridiculousness with like almost near full scorpions all the time. It's funny.
So Netflix also recently did a show that was it was called something like Extreme Tag or Ultimate Tag, something tag. And it's awful. Don't watch it.
Okay.
But this one this one's decent. I mean it's exactly nostalgic in that way. Like, we all know what the floor is lava means.
Yeah.
We all did it. Some of us have still done it as adults and that nobody saw it.
Oh, yeah. I don't give a shit if somebody sees it. If someone calls me on and asking me what I'm doing, I'm going to tell them, dude, you died. You're in lava. You can't talk to me.
So some of us still walk upstairs by trying to see how many you can skip with one step.
Do you run up the stairs on all fours? It's tricky because you have lots of stairs.
Okay. So I'm hesitating there because before I moved into this apartment building, absolutely.
Yeah.
When we lived in a house previously, absolutely. I've not done it since we've been here, but like those are public communal stairs.
I'd do it. I wouldn't give a shit. Dude, next time I come to your house,
no, it has not happened recently.
I am going beast mode up those steps.
Well, by the time the quarantining is over, I will not be in this apartment building anymore, but I will have some steps for you.
Well, I'll wear a mask and then severely wash my hands afterwards because then those steps are gross.
They're actually cleaned very regularly. They're just really old and stained.
They look like if you put your hand on them, it would feel like you're sitting on a beach. Because I can just feel the sand and grit just by looking at them, man. They're not. But I believe it. It seems like a pretty sanitary place.
Yeah. Anyway, the floor is lava is it's decent dumb fun.
Yeah.
It's something we put on like while I'm multitasking. Like I'm actually playing on my Switch but looking up every minute or so. If I hear a reaction that suggests I should look up at the instant replay.
Yeah, that's a funny.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So light recommend from me.
I recommend it if you just want something that's nothing serious and I don't know, you don't have any like huge high expectations or need to follow a complicated plot. It's just simple, you know?
Yeah.
So it's fun. I have a couple other things I wanted to talk about, but Dalton, you were mentioning that you had something else.
We're 40 plus minutes in. Let's take advantage of that backlog for next week and just move into The Last of Us 2.
Okay. So I'm going to start this off with we are going to talk spoilers probably for The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. So I think it would be fair to give you guys about a good 10 seconds to, just pause the show, stop listening.
Everyone dies.
Yeah, sure. There you go. Everyone dies, including Dalton for spoiling it. So anyways, we're going to get into the spoilers now, or at least start. So here we go. Last of Us Part 2. Dalton, I am mad that nobody likes this game.
Okay. So for the audience, I have not played either of these games. The first game, to be honest, I YouTubed and watched somebody else play it, and it wasn't grabbing me. And it might just be that I should have been playing it myself and not watching someone, but I figured watching someone would be okay because everyone was talking about the story and not the gameplay. The gameplay didn't look particularly interesting to me at the time either, so I don't know which direction you feel, and I don't really want to dive into the first game. But
we have to talk about the end of the first game to explain the events of the second game.
Yes.
So,
yes, I'm saying I'm not getting into our feelings on the first game. My point is just, it might have been wrong place, wrong time, but I didn't get into the game at the time, and I haven't played this one and wasn't really, waiting for it and getting excited for it. I will give them a shot when I get a PS5, which may or may not be around launch, because I'm sure at least the first one people love it for a reason, and I'm just missing something. I'll give it another shot, but I'm barely familiar with this franchise. But I'm talking anyway because I did watch a heavy spoiler review on the second game, and I haven't seen anyone else's opinions except this one video from one YouTuber I really like. So I don't know what the general reception has been, except for what he says it's been. But I feel like I'm going to agree with you.
Just out of curiosity, you can edit this out, but wasn't the cosmonaut for ID Hours? Spoiler?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because he pissed me off because he
in.
spoiled the Star Wars movie for me and how that ended. So thanks, buddy. Anyways, I guess it's my fault. Because it's always my fault.
We've never talked about him. I like that we both happen
okay,
to be subscribed to him. Anyway,
I'll give like a brief synopsis of the first game for those who don't care about spoilers. Basically, what happens is it's a real life fungus known as cordyceps that can take over the lives of ants and allow them to climb up trees and throw spores out to keep that fungus alive. Basically, that fungus has adapted to be able to infect humans and do the same thing. You start off in the first game as Joel, who loses his daughter who's like 8 or 10 or something like that. She gets killed by a military guy very early on in the first 5 minutes of the first game and is really sad. Fast forward to 20 years in the future where the world's kind of accepted the fact that this is what it is. There is depending on how you look at it, a terrorist group or a rebellious faction against the U.S. government known as the Fireflies, who discovered a girl named Ellie who happens to be immune to the cordyceps. So basically, you killed the smuggler in the beginning of the game that was supposed to take her to the Fireflies in their main headquarters across the country. So you guys take the spot of that smuggler, being smugglers yourself. You and another friend who dies later on in the game. It doesn't matter. Anyways, you make it across country with this girl, Ellie, as this 40-year-old man and this 14-year-old girl who he kind of replaces as his own daughter. Because it's kind of the daughter that he could save when he couldn't really save his own. It's a great story. There's great character dialogue, and I don't want to diminish that. However, at the end of the game, when you make it to the hospital, the surgeon that is performing an operation on Ellie determines that in order to create a vaccine, he has to open her head to get whatever gene out of the cordyceps that have mutated in her head, which means killing the host. So, Joel, I don't necessarily agree with the ending of the first game, but I don't know if I would have done any different. He goes on a rampage, kills everybody, including the surgeon that is the only person that could administer the vaccine, to save the only person that can produce the vaccine. So he kills everybody and saves Ellie for his own sake, because that's what he felt was the right thing to do. Now, the second game starts right after the first game for a brief moment, and then it fast forwards to 4 years in the future. So Ellie is now 18. Joel is even older. There's a lot of character building. There's a huge giant community that they live in. There's some shit that happens. You end up meeting this new mysterious character named Abby, who in turn was looking for Joel and succeeds in killing Joel very brutally in front of Ellie. At that point in the game, I lost my shit. Like, I actually, for the first time ever, I stood up playing a game, white knuckling my controller and screaming what the fuck at this game. I was genuinely mad. Like, I was like, oh man, this game better end like God of War 3 did. Like, I was even texting friends that as we were both playing the game. So you start playing the game and then you realize, like, they do a really good job at perception in this game.
Okay.
Sort of. I don't necessarily like these characters, but I get their story. Halfway through the game, you end up playing as Abby, the person that you want to beat to a pulp. And you're supposed to sympathize with this character, is what everyone keeps thinking. You're not supposed to sympathize with this character. You're supposed to understand what they're going through. It doesn't mean that you have to have any ties to them, much like you don't have to have ties to Ellie or Joel.
Yeah.
Because the big thing that I keep seeing is that everyone keeps thinking that Joel was a good guy for what he did, and he really was not.
No.
You know, if you think about it, especially after playing the second game, think about it this way.
No, exactly. So the big, the only like reception I've been seeing, because I haven't, again, I haven't looked out reviews because I don't really know or care about this franchise really, but you know, when I would see The Last of Us 2 trending on Twitter and glance at it, the vibe I would get is just that people are bitching that they killed Joel, and it's like,
and that they didn't kill Abby at the end. That was the other big one.
So I will never wrap my head around why that's supposed to be a complaint.
Right.
Like first of all, do you ever control Joel in this game, or are you immediately Ellie?
I think you might control him very briefly in the beginning.
Okay. I was going to say, if they immediately establish you playing as Ellie, then that should give you the foregone conclusion that he's going to die.
But I mean, in the beginning of the first game, you played as his daughter who died.
Well, and so, well, okay, there you go. That's foreshadowing, if that's a repetitive pattern. Also, I, who never played the first one and didn't watch any of the marketing for this one, I could have told you he was going to fucking die.
Yeah. Well, apparently there was a bunch of stuff that leaked just before the game. And people, like, they're so fucking angry about it. And it's like, they're like, why didn't you let me get the revenge I wanted? And it's like, because it's not about you. It is so not about you. That's what nobody understands.
And it's, you know, as far as I can tell, again, not having played it myself, I need to stop. I need to stop clarifying that. I'm like minimizing my own opinion by being like, you know, I didn't play them, but you know, I didn't play them. As far as I can tell, it's supposed to be like the opposite of the first one. You're supposed to be looking at Joel at the end of the first one and going like, this was the wrong way to react. And not even necessarily that like you would blame him for it, for like having selfish moments or doing really bad things in the midst of, you know, a post-apocalyptic world. It's not even necessarily that like, oh, he's evil, but you are supposed to look at it like this selfishness consumed him.
Yeah.
It did bad things for him. It did bad things for Ellie. It did bad things for the world around him that he gave in to these impulses. And this is supposed to be Ellie doing better.
Well, here's the other thing, too. There is a scene in the first game that tells you that Joel is just a cold-blooded killer when he needs to be at any time, and he is okay with it. And that scene is when Ellie gets kidnapped in the first game by cannibals. And he beats two men to death trying to find out where they are. Because he points to a map and says, I want you to point out where they are on this map. And if your buddy doesn't tell me the exact same thing, you're dead. So dude points it out on a map. Okay. He sees the map and he's like, okay, like the guy's screaming. He's like, that's where they are. I promise. Joel then kills that guy before double checking with the other one. And then the other guy says, dude, what the fuck?
That's exactly what I just described in Assassin's Creed.
Okay, yeah. But the thing is they did kidnap a 14-year-old girl who had very like sexual assaulty predator vibes. So well, hold on, I'm not done.
Things like that.
At the end of that scene, the other guy screams at Joel going, what the fuck, dude? He gave you what you wanted. He was telling you the truth. Or something along those lines. And he's like, how do you even know now? Because you don't have him to double check me. And Joel looks at him and says, that's all right. I believe him, and beats that other dude to death with a fucking pipe. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah, and
it's
so
so
that's
tricky.
something that you have to kind of recalibrate your moral compass when you're talking about fiction, because fiction, it makes it like it exaggerates, it makes it's kind of like a caricature of real things going wrong. You have to accept that like things that are bad are like way worse in fiction, and you're gonna let them get away with worse.
Yeah.
And you have to be like more forgiving and understanding of the context of like the world that they're in. I guess I'm getting at like the trope where, oh, bad guy,
it's not about winning,
rule the world, where like I'm talking about
like
in fiction. I'm talking about when fiction allows a bad guy to be forgiven for like way worse crimes than we would ever forgive in the real world. If you think to like the MCU, like Loki eventually becomes like an apologetic character that like people kind of like, and you're supposed to see him as conflicted, not outright evil.
Right.
But like the bad that he's done is way beyond what we would ever forgive in the real world.
Right.
So like that's what I mean by we recalibrate our moral compass. We let him get away with more because it's not real. And so in this in a scenario like that, combining, the fact that it's fiction, the fact that this is the post-apocalypse and the world just works differently.
There's no rules anymore.
That's still a scenario where you can make a justification in the real world. If we were talking about something really happening, plenty of people would still argue, no, he was in the right there. And I don't have enough context to know if I would agree with them or not, but like it's debatable. So that's a moment where you're supposed to look at him not yet like he's evil, but like, man, he is really quick to do some really decisive, harsh things without really reflecting on the consequences or what it says about him.
It's unjustified. And some of it doesn't require reason, but at the end of the game, there was a good point that I had seen on Reddit. I've actually been arguing with people on Reddit about this game. Somebody pointed out that if you could at any point in the game not kill anybody, at the very end, the persons that you were supposed to kill are the surgeon and Marlene. Now, to give context to the surgeon, that was Abby's dad, who she didn't watch him kill her dad, but she swore revenge, much like anybody would have. But the thing is like, I'm getting ahead of myself here.
The point I was getting at was that the moment where he gives in to his own selfish urges to kill the surgeon, I think that was supposed to be more definitively evil. Like the earlier scenarios show that he has it in him, but they're still putting him in scenarios where like you could try to justify what he did, and some people would agree, some would disagree, but this is a scenario where it's like, no, you just outright doomed the world, right, to protect a person you care about.
Exactly.
And like maybe you still get it. Maybe you still go, oh, well, I have selfish urges too. Maybe I do the wrong thing in that scenario as well. But you still know it's the wrong thing to do.
Right, exactly.
In that scenario, even if
some
you
mistakes
think you
have to make
too.
But like the thing is like throughout Ellie's revenge story, you can tell that she is not like Joel. The first person that she tortures to death, it actually messed with me. Just because like you could like the facial animations that they did in the game were phenomenal. Everything, at least story wise, I'm okay with. Some of it, I have gripes with. But just a lot of the stuff they did, like, for example, any given time when you run into these resistance soldiers that they're fighting against, you kill one of them and somebody sees that person's dead. They don't just go, hey, someone's here. They scream that person's name.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be like, oh no, they got Joe, or oh no, they got Wendy, or whatever. And
that's really cool.
It's because, like, in the first game, I played them back to back. Going back a little older, a little wiser to the first game made me realize, man, this is kind of messed up and wrong. And I think that's why I'm a little better suited for what the game was trying to go for than probably a lot of these people that hadn't played it for years. Because I'm willing to bet these people that have the same mindset as me were those people that went back and played it, or at least remember the game way more than, the average Joe, and just remember that they felt good doing the ending of the other one. That's not trying to brag.
Ignoring, well, and they're ignoring the merit of, like, art and media is allowed to try to invoke whatever emotion they want in you.
Yeah.
And that emotion of, like, fulfilling your vengeance, the God of War 3 thing, like, that felt great. They sure picked an emotion and successfully put it in me.
Yes, they did.
But some emotions aren't good ones. And if you've played the first Last of Us, how can you be confused about that? Like, it's not like, this isn't, happy time. It's not.
Yeah, like,
you're not supposed to be enjoying it. It's supposed to be making you feel down, because for whatever psychological reason, I don't know why our brains work this way, but, like, we still like art that makes us feel down. If anything, I might like it more.
Yeah.
I might have a much deeper appreciation for a movie that makes me bawl my eyes out than one that tries to make me happy. I don't know why our brains seek that out, but they do. And this game took the route of not that vengeance is a happy feeling, but
and even then,
it's you getting what you want. You not getting what you want is a valid feeling for the artists to seek out, and
right?
Put in you.
And here's the thing: like, the game really shows you what vengeance can do to you. Because at the end of the game, literally, Ellie is left with nothing. She loses her girlfriend, their son. She loses her ring and pinky finger on her left hand, which inhibits her ability to play the guitar that Joel taught her how to do. Because in the last moments of the game, there's weird shit. Like, I didn't understand why they brought in a new evil faction at the end of the game. I guess it makes sense because, like, there has to be factions everywhere around the world. Like, it wouldn't just make sense that we know about these three factions, not just the WLF or the Fireflies or, what were the other ones called? Doesn't matter.
Right.
So, like, a lot of people were like, why are they introducing this new faction within, like, the last 3 hours of the game? And it's like, to give more plot. Like, the fuck do you want? Like, obviously, like, they have to have some sort of organized ritual for it to make sense at the end. But, like, right as she's drowning Abby, like, she is killing Abby, like, she's about to kill her, she sees a memory in her head of Joel. Keep in mind, she's been getting PTSD ever since the whole events of the game. The last moment that she sees of Joel was the night before he died, where she's talking to him about forgiveness, and she would want to start forgiving him or understand. And I've done a lot of, I don't know, just random watchings on YouTube, and I'm one of those people that is, forgiveness isn't hearing it, but more understanding it for yourself. Like, I don't need someone to apologize for what they've done if I can forgive them without them telling me.
I'm trying to figure out why you threw YouTube into that sentence.
This is an old video I watched on YouTube, and it was just interesting. Like I watched a lot of like body language videos on how to read body languages and understanding emotions. I'm not a very emotional guy. I'm a very thoughtful guy. I think about a lot of things.
I too think a lot of stuff about a lot of things.
But so in that moment, I think that Ellie was actually forgiving him and wanting to make up for lost time. Mm-hmm. Because 2 years before Joel died, she had been told what had happened, what had really happened, because she was unconscious for the whole events of the ending of the first game. Mm-hmm. So she wanted to make up for those last 2 years of time because she felt shitty about it, even though she knew what he did wasn't great. Okay. Because, like, she was really all he had. Or he was really all what she had. And a lot of people are like...
Or both.
Right, exactly. I don't know. People just wanted to get what they wanted. And, you know, I probably would have been the same mindset if it actually weren't for you, Dalton. There was a conversation we had back when you still went to college, and I was telling you that I had started watching Breaking Bad. And I said, I don't know which character to root for. And you told me, don't root for anyone. You said this is one of those stories that you were just supposed to watch it happen. You're not supposed to like anybody. And then I was introduced to games like Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, where it doesn't matter if you're good or bad. Good or bad things will always happen to you. Yeah. Life is just life. There is no punishment for existing.
Yeah. Well, and like in a world where, you know, up until the last couple of seasons screwed it up, like Game of Thrones was the world's biggest phenomenon. Mm-hmm. I thought people had started to understand and appreciate storytelling where good things don't have to happen to a character because you like them.
Right.
I thought we figured out that we wanted media to make us feel things, and that bad things happening to a good person is a way to make us feel things.
Right.
But the response to this game is making
obviously one step forward, two steps back.
Second guess that. Yeah, making me second guess that now. I saw that it's getting really good, like, critical response, but like getting review bombed by users. I don't know. It seems like there's something here that the critics aren't getting.
Maybe it is the context of the first game that they're not getting.
Sorry, I said that wrong. There's something that the critics are getting here that the general audience seems not to be for some reason.
Yeah,
and I think there's this weird entitlement where, yeah, people are going into stories and expecting exactly the thing they want, exactly the thing they came up with in their mind.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, then like they're owed something.
Right.
You did not, like you mentioned the Star Wars movies. You haven't watched since Rogue One, so you didn't see episode 8 and 9.
Correct.
8 is where the franchise hit its most like divisive point, like, we'll never return back to normal, this will never be a stable, coherent fan base again, like, just don't become a part of Star Wars' awful, toxic fan base because of what that movie did to people. But I utterly loved that movie.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like what I expected. I think that's a good thing. Like, that alone doesn't make it a good movie. It's not like, I'm not going to get into The Last Jedi right now and what complaints people have about it and which ones I agree with and which ones I don't. But for a lot of people, the complaints were, it boiled down to, it's not what they wanted when they walked in.
Yeah, exactly. For one, you're the one who made the choice to go see this movie, go play this game before this particular sequel of it came out. So you got invested. You know what I mean? Like, you're a bystander to somebody else's vision.
Yeah. Yes.
And The second that you can't understand or accept that, then it's your fault. It's not the creator. I'm sorry. Did I necessarily want the ending to be exactly this? No, but I totally fucking got it. I get what they were going for, and they may not have missed, or they might not have hit the mark every time, but I'm not going to criticize them for something that they poured a lot of time into.
Yeah, well, and if a creator does this, if they take a franchise that you already know and they make an entry in it that isn't quite what you were hoping for or anticipated, and you don't like it, okay, maybe they did something genuinely bad, but the genuinely bad thing isn't just that they did something you weren't expecting. If the only thing you can come up with is, it didn't do the thing I want, then that doesn't make it bad. It makes it not for you.
Right.
And I guess that's fine. If it's just not for you, I guess that's fine. But
it doesn't make something awful because it's not what you liked.
But yeah, that's different from, going on a Twitter rampage about how much you're personally insulted by them not doing the thing you wanted. There are people petitioning for them to basically just make the game again.
Jesus.
Do it again, but better.
No.
And and I'm seeing more and more of that. Star Wars gets that. People are always being like, no, we need to, make Disney, say that, either a particular recent movie or their whole trilogy, we have to get them to realize that it ruined Star Wars and throw them out the window and start all over again. Or Game of Thrones season 8 got that. Big petitions to make the last season all over again. And it's no, I mean, I assume these people know that that's not actually a goal they can accomplish. They can't actually convince these people to remake a thing. So maybe they're just trying to further strengthen the message that hey, I don't like thing, but
this isn't what I wanted. Take
really
it back.
It's still just a really immature, dumb method to express that.
I hope that we create something in the future that gets a sequel, okay? And it isn't what people wanted. And somebody goes, "This sucks, take it back." And then we can just say, no backsies.
I hope someone tries to get us to wipe a bad Limit Break album from our catalog.
Speaking of, if you like creations that you may not always vibe with, go check out Limit Break, our video game music cover band.
Anyway, this rant has been brought to you by yet another Geek Show. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Have fun.